Very good morning, students. Welcome back to online class on programming for problem solving course. In our previous class, we have seen different concepts from your first unit, like we have completed the creating and running programs. In high level language, how we can write a program and how we can get it processed before getting the output. Before we get the output, what are the different steps involved? Where we are writing the program and how we are compiling it, how we are linking it, loading it, and finally getting the executable code. And that executable code, how we are giving to the loader and runner, and to get the output, to see the output on the output screen. So we said all these things we are doing in 4 different steps. The first step is writing and editing programs. The second step, compiling the programs. Third step, linking the program with suitable library modules. And the fourth step, the last step, executing the program. Okay, so different types of tools get involved in these steps. uh, in the first step, when we are writing and editing the program, we are making use of the text editor. We discussed different types of text editors: the normal text editor, which is a general purpose multi-purpose text editor that can also be used to write the C programs or high level language programs. And we also have the sophisticated, the integrated modules, the what we call IDEs in the market, readily available for writing, executing, compiling, for doing all the tasks in one shot, isn't it? Such type of editors, such type of text editors also we can use. Such type of IDEs also we can use to write the high level language programs. Okay, then in order to compile the program, we use a special software program known as compiler. So in compilation, we are having two different parts. The first one is the what we call translation. First one is the preprocessor, and the second one is translation unit, translator unit. Preprocessor, it will combine all the header files with our actual program and creates the translation unit. That translation unit we are giving as an input to the translator, and the translator will actually converts every line of high level language instruction into machine level language instruction. Likewise, after the translator, we'll be having the linker. It will link the predefined user defined functions into our program. Okay, then after the linker, we'll be having uh, the last step, that is execution. Over there, we'll make use of different programs like runner, loader, which these programs will load the executable program into the main memory. And once the program loaded into the main memory, it takes the full control on CPU and start executing itself, isn't it? And once the program gets executed, we can see the output. At that stage only we can see the output as well. And we said all these steps, they are repeated many times whenever you get some sort of errors, some sort of problems, some sort of issues in your high level language code. So whenever there is an error, your compiler will list that error, and again what we have to do, we have to start from the first step. Again, we have to go to the editor and we have to correct those errors. We have to check for those errors and we have to correct those errors. Once those errors gets corrected, again we need to compile. Likewise, we have to repeat the 1, 2, 3, 4 steps for some n number of times before we get the output. Okay, so that is the concept of creating and running programs, and as I said, it is an important question for your external exams. Okay, many of the times they ask this question as an LAQ, long answer question. Okay, then we have the computing environments, different computing environments, we started with mainframe computing environment, then personal computing environment, time sharing computing environment, client server computing environment, and distributed computing environment. All these four, in that the main are only we actually have 5 computing environments, in that the main are only 4. Okay, the first type of computing environment, that is mainframe computing environment, we have not given any category for that one. We said in the olden days, or at the uh, inception level of your computers, there was only one computing environment available, that is mainframe computing environment, and whatever task we want to perform, we have to give that task to the mainframe computer, and we expect the output from that mainframe computer only. Will not depend on any sharing of resources, any connectivity between multiple computers. Likewise, the complete task will be performed by the mainframe computer only. Okay, so as it is very old computer, or we can say very beginning stage of the computers, and at that time the computers were not used for general purpose, isn't it? For general purposes, it was used for research and scientific purposes only. So that's the reason we have not given any special category to the mainframe computers. We simply called it as mainframe computer category, and the complete thing will be performed. The task, whatever we have to get it done by the computer, we have to give to the mainframe computer, and we have to get the output from that computer only. So then we got the evolution, we can say, in computer world by Martian E. Hoff. What he has done, he kept all the necessary components of a computer onto a single chip, and they called it as a microprocessor, Intel 4004. With that invention, a lot of small scale computers came into existence, and I think that chip invention, it has been done in the year 1971. Okay, so after that we got many different types of computers in the market, and because of that computer types, variety of computers, we got different computing environments, like your personal computing environment, your time sharing computing environment, your client server computing environment, and distributed computing environment. About these four we discussed in detail. I have given the clarity on each of these computing environment. I mean, how exactly the task will be accomplished in these type of computing environments. Okay, hopefully you also got some idea from that discussion. So quickly, in today's session we'll start our new concept, that is program development steps. Okay, so program development steps are nothing but whenever you work for a solution to a given problem, what steps, what strategies you follow, all those things we discuss over here. They will give you a real-time problem. Let us assume we have what we call a library, a college library, where everything they are doing manually. Okay, if they are writing in documents, and they are preparing manual documents for the record purpose of different transactions in a library. So what are the general transactions in a library? In a library, a student, faculty, or any other person will approach to get a book, isn't it? For reading purpose or for reference purpose, they approach the library for taking a book. So which student is taking what book, which faculty is taking what book, all these information, I mean, what is the current availability of books inside the library, okay, what books they want to purchase from the market, all these type of things they have to maintain, isn't it? And assume that all these types of things they are maintaining written, okay, written on a paper, like manually they are maintaining all this type of information. You know, it is a very difficult job to maintain all these details on a paper manually, because when you maintain the details manually, there is a problem of inaccuracy, isn't it? You cannot expect the 100% accuracy when you write the details on a paper for such big scale, large scale transactions. Okay, maybe sometime one student approaches and he takes a book, and if the librarian forgets to write that entry in the record book, then what will happen? Ultimately it is a loss of book only. Likewise the things will happen, likewise the things will go wrong. So for that sake they thought that to develop a computer software to maintain all that type of information, all that type of transaction information. So there comes the problem for you IT people. Okay, the uh, they will approach the IT people, IT companies for the development of a library application. Let us assume in this way. So at that stage, in order to develop that library application in terms of computer software, what steps the software people will follow, what exactly they will do, how they will start the development, how they will end. Okay, so all these things are nothing but the program development steps. Okay, the application program development steps. Okay, so if you read it over here, to develop a software solution to the given problem. So what exactly we are doing here? We are developing a software solution to the given problem. So our given problem is we want to develop a library application, a library software. Okay, so that is our real-time problem and we want the solution for that one. So to develop a solution, just read these steps over here. Yes, to develop a solution to the given problem, one has to follow the following steps. Okay, they have to follow whatever steps we are discussing over here. So first of all, understanding the problem, it is very very important, because without understanding we can't develop the solution. First of all, whatever problem we have in hand, we need to understand it thoroughly. Okay, how the transactions is been happening in that library. I mean, who are all approaching the library? The students, the faculty, the management. Okay, the other sort of people. Okay, how many different types of people are approaching the library? That thing they have to understand. And what are the roles of a librarian? That they have to understand. What are the roles of other people? Okay, other people, if a book if one particular student is requesting a book and that book is not available in the library, what sort of actions they have to take? They have to put that student on hold, isn't it, on a waiting queue for a particular book. Likewise, all these type of understandings, the software people or the developers, they need to have. Okay, so that is understanding the problem. Then develop a solution. So they will do a rough solution on a paper. Okay, it is not developing a solution in the sense directly they will not go for the software development. Prior to the development of software, they will do some planning. That planning comes under the second step. Developing the solution is nothing but they basically do the planning. So before, let us assume we are constructing a house. Okay, construction of a house, it doesn't mean that directly we can put the bricks and put the cement and we'll start constructing the rooms, isn't it? We'll not do in that way. First of all, we'll take the measurements of the overall land, and on that land we'll decide where to put our drawing room, where to put our kitchen, where to put our toilets. Likewise, we'll do a proper planning, a proper design. After that only we'll start the construction of house, isn't it? So here also the same thing. After understanding the problem, they will do the solution on a paper. Okay, they will prepare the solution on a paper. That preparation is nothing but we call it as a plan. Okay, so developing the solution, they do in I mean they use three different types of tools for developing the solution. Okay, they are the structure charts, then algorithms and pseudocode. These two are separate things. Okay, these two are separate things. Okay, but they are closely related to each other. That's the reason I kept under one point only instead of taking four separate points. Because they are closely related, I kept algorithms and pseudocodes inside one single point. Okay, so first they will go with structure charts, then algorithms and pseudocode, and then finally the flow chart. Okay, after designing the flow chart, this flow chart, it can be directly converted to computer program. Okay, so first they will design the structure chart, then algorithm, then pseudocode, then flow chart, and that flow chart they will convert into program, a computer program. Write the program, and once you have written the program, it is not sufficient. Okay, having the program code in hand, it doesn't mean that you have the solution. You need to test it. whether it will give the proper output as you are expecting or not. So that they will do under testing part. The last step is the test the program, testing the computer program. So once again, quickly we'll revise. First of all, there is a need to understand the problem thoroughly. Understanding they will do by interacting with different types of stakeholders. Stakeholders are nothing but who are all going to use that product, who are all going to use your application. So they will interact with the librarian. What sort of transactions they are performing, the librarians. Okay, they will interact with the librarians, then they will interact with the students, then they will interact with the faculty and management, principal, with all HODs likewise. So after interacting with different types of stakeholders, they will write down their requirements, how they want their application to be. They will write down those requirements and they will read those requirements. So that it's in that way they will try to understand the problem. Okay, so understanding the problem is the first step and is the very important step. Okay, then they will develop the solution. So to develop the solution, to develop a plan, they make use of structure charts, algorithms, pseudocode and flow charts. Okay, these are all the tools for developing the plan. Okay, then once the plan is ready, they will start writing the programs. Okay, the third step is writing the programs. Then once the program is written, they will test that program for accuracy or for errors, for problem solution. Okay, testing the program is the last step. So we'll study all these steps one by one in a brief manner. Okay, so quickly just go to the first step, that is understanding the problem. Okay, so already I have given much idea about how they will understand the problem. So let's just have a clarity once again. So understanding the problem is nothing but whatever task is given to us, we have to analyze the task, we have to break the task into modules, and we have to interact with different people to get the inputs from them. Okay, so the first step in solving any problem is to understand it, because without understanding we can't go for a solution, isn't it? First of all, we need to understand the problem. Then to solve any problem, first you must understand the problem by reading the requirements of the problem. So from where we get the requirements? So they are saying just read out the requirements of the problem to understand it. Okay, so first what we have to do, we have to read the requirements in order to understand it. Requirements from the stakeholders we will get. As I said, we'll interact with different peoples like librarians, student, HODs, principal. With all these people, all these types of people will interact and will get the requirements. And if you read those requirements, it will help. I mean, those requirements will help you in understanding the problem. Okay, once you understand it, review it with customers. Okay, customers are nothing but the stakeholders who are all going to use our product. They are our customers. So after having the understanding, after reading the requirements, after having the understanding, what we have to do, we have to discuss that understanding with the stakeholders, with customers as well as with system analyst. Okay, system analyst, it is under our control only, because we are the developers, we are the project developers or solution developers. So this system analyst will be in our control. He's having some expertise in understanding different types of problems. Okay, system analyst is a job role who is having the understanding, who is having the expertise in understanding. Okay, the company will appoint these type of people. They are because they will help us to understand the problems, different types of problems. So once when you understand the problem, you just discuss that understanding with system analyst. He will give some inputs. He will tell that, okay, whatever you have understand, it is not correct, try to understand it in this way. Likewise, he will guide us in order to understand the given problem. Okay, so after understanding, we need to review those understandings with customers as well as system analyst. Okay, so these type of things we have to do in order to understand the problem. The second step is developing the solution. To develop a solution for the given problem, the following tools are needed. Okay, so in that, the first tool is the structure chart. We have different types of tools, isn't it? The first type of tool is structure chart. then algorithm pseudocode, then finally the flowchart. So the first step is the structure chart. What exactly it is? So it is a diagrammatic representation, we can say. What is a structure chart? It is a diagrammatic representation. It is also known as the hierarchical chart because we are going to have some steps. What step we have to perform first, and after that what step we have to perform. Likewise, all the steps we will give in a hierarchical chart. Okay, hierarchical chart manner. So it shows the functional flow. Functional flow means first what step we have to perform, then after what step we have to perform. Likewise, it will show the functional flow through the through our program or through our problem solution. Okay, so it is a hierarchical chart and it will show the functional flow through the program. Okay, it shows the problem, how the problem is broken. So just now I said the given problem, it cannot be solved as a single entity. We must have to divide that problem into smaller modules, smaller entities. So how that division, how that broken entities we are going to get from the actual problem, this structure chart will tell us. Okay, each step will be a separate module. It shows how the problem is broken into logical steps. Okay, and each step will be a separate module. So when we are breaking the given problem into smaller logical modules, smaller logical entities, we call each of these entity as a separate module. Okay, it is also shows the interaction between. So when you are breaking the actual program, actual problem into number of modules, each module with has to interact with other modules. So that interaction, how it can do that sort of thing, the links between the modules, that also be shown inside the structure chart. So it is same like your architect's blueprint. Architect's blueprint in the sense, generally what the architect will do, what the engineer will do when you give the land for the construction of house to him, in the sense he will break down the construction of house into smaller room constructions, smaller partitions. Okay, he will tell that here we will construct the toilet, here we will construct the kitchen, here we will construct the bedrooms. Like that he will break down, he will subdivide the actual task into some smaller portions, isn't it? So yeah, that subdivision where he will show on the plan itself, on the house plan, on the building plan itself, he will show that one. So that same thing, when we have the problem in hand, when we have subdivided that problem into smaller modules, that subdivision and the links between those modules, everything we will show on a chart, on a hierarchical chart. And that hierarchical chart is nothing but it is structure chart. And this structure chart, it is similar to a architect's blueprint. Okay, so remember all these things. So let us consider a simple example for the structure chart. So let us assume that I want to buy a computer. Okay, uh, I have a problem right now. I want to buy a computer. So that is my task, or that is my job, or we can consider, because it is a effortful job, we consider it as a problem because we have to develop the solution to that one. What is the solution? Purchasing a computer, getting the computer system ready at my home is nothing but the solution. So to get a computer, a working computer at my home, what sort of steps I have to follow? Isn't it? It is not like that simply I want a computer and I am going to the market and buying that computer. Nobody will do. Nowadays, nobody will do in that in that way. Definitely, they will do some sort of research on that one. Even to buy a mobile phone, we do a lot of research. Because we are now technical peoples, we will do a lot of research to buy a mobile phone. Which camera, I mean, what type of camera the mobile phone is having, what type of battery life the mobile phone is having, what type of processing power. Processing power is nothing but internal processor, RAM, internal memory, all these things. Will do, I mean, how much display size it is having, screen size it is having, how the market reviews about that mobile phone are there. Those also, I mean, that also will do a study. Okay, after this much of research, will come to a conclusion that I want to buy this model, this brand mobile phone, and I will go to the market and I will buy that mobile phone. So when it comes to the computer, we'll do a same level of study. Okay, so that I mean, what kind of study we are doing, what kind of research work we are doing, what type of solution we are developing to solve that by a computer problem, I have given in the form of a structure chart over here. So that by a computer, it is my problem, and I am subdividing that problem into three different problems. Okay, into three smaller problems. This is my actual problem. By a computer is my actual problem, and that actual problem I'm subdividing into three different problems. The first one is get the configuration information, because when you are buying a computer, the configuration plays a vital role, isn't it? Definitely, whoever is purchasing a computer, he is more concerned about the configuration. So get the configuration. So this is my first job, I mean first sub portion, first module we can say. Then calculate based on that configuration how much cost I have to pay, because many times the cost which we are going to pay, okay, how much burden we can bear on our pocket, that is also plays a vital role. Okay, cost of the product based on the configuration, that is the second thing. So whatever configuration we are listing, depending on that we'll try to get the cost. Okay, then print report, I mean whatever research work we have done, we need to get the report of that work. Okay, so that we can have it handy, and whenever we want we can easily check that one. So print the report is the third job. So this calculation, so when we are going for this calculation again I have subdivided into two. Okay, how much cost I have to pay in case of a desktop, and how much cost I have to pay in case of a laptop. As you know, in the market, buying a computer means we have two options. We can either go for a PC, desktop PC, okay, or we can even go for a laptop. Okay, two options again. So calculation, when you are purchasing I mean if your option is desktop, how much it will be. Calculation when your option is laptop, how much it will be. Likewise, again desktop, if you are opting desktop, if you are going, you have different brands to purchase. You can get it from Sony, you can get it from Dell, you can get it from HP, Acer. Okay, likewise Asus, likewise many different brands we were having in the market. And as you know, as you select the brand, the cost will get affected, isn't it? The cost will get affected. Configuration, it is same. Okay, configuration, the same configuration you can get for desktop, the same configuration you can get for laptop. That's the reason we have not done the subdivision over here. Okay, configuration subdivision over here. Where exactly the subdivision has to be done means in terms of cost only, because only the cost will change. Only the cost will change when you go for a desktop, when you go for laptop. Configuration, the finalized configuration, like let us assume I say 16 GB of RAM I want. So that 16 GB I can get both in desktop as well as in laptop. I said 1 TB of HDD I want. 1 TB of HDD I want. So that 1 TB I can get both in desktop as well as in laptop. I said Intel processor, Intel Core i7 processor I want. Core i7. So this Core i7 I can get both in desktop as well as in laptop. That's the reason we have not done any subdivision in terms of configuration. Only we have done the subdivision in terms of calculation, because only the cost is going to be affected. Okay, so this is just a simple example what I have taken. So this type of scrutiny, this type of analysis will do for the actual problems as well. Okay, so next, desktop, when it is Dell, when it is HP, of course your calculation is going to be affected. Laptop, when it is Dell and when it is HP, same thing, the calculation is going to be affected. So based on the calculation, based on the configuration, we can buy a computer. So buying a computer and getting it home is our solution. So in this way we can, I mean we can do the planning with the help of a structure chart. How we can develop the solution, for that solution the planning we can do in this way. Okay, so this is a simple example for structure chart. Then we have the concept of algorithms and pseudocodes. So first we study thoroughly about this algorithm, then we'll go for pseudocode. So once you have the understanding on algorithm, it is very easy for you to understand the pseudocode. Okay, so first we go with the algorithm, and this algorithm is an important part. Okay, this algorithm, it is an important part of our C programming study. Okay, so just pay attention and try to get the definitions. Okay, so what exactly is an algorithm? In the sense, it is a step by step approach for solving the given problem. Okay, in simple terms, how we are defining, it is a step by step approach for solving the given computational problem, because many times with the help of programming languages, whether it is C, whether it is C++, whether it is Java, what we do in the sense, we solve the computational problems only. So which we can do the where we need to do the calculations. We, as I said, we are not going for any physical effort work. Like construction of a house, we need to put the bricks, we need to put the cement, we need to paint, we need to do a lot of things over there. That sort of things we will not do in computational world. Of course, nowadays we have the robotics, we have 3D printers, many different things they are doing. Okay, that is beyond the scope of our imagination at this stage, at this level. So we'll not go for that type of study. So you simply remember, whenever we are finding the solution, you have to take the problem, a computational problem, okay, where you can do the calculations and where you can get the result of those calculations. Don't expect any physical effort work to be done by the computer. Okay, so when we are writing the solution for a computational problem, and when we are going for algorithm, this algorithm is nothing but it is a step by step approach or step by step process to solve any given computational problem. So this is the definition I have given to the algorithm. So it is a step by step approach. So ultimately, whatever problem you take, okay, in real time, whatever problem you take, definitely we have to start at some point and we have to end at some point after finding the solution. So in between this start and end, we are going to do so many things, and all those things, if you put like steps, so first I will do this thing, second I will do this thing, third I will do this thing, like this. If you put all that processing, all that functionalities in steps, though that is nothing but the descriptive steps is nothing but your algorithm. Okay, so we will discuss some examples also for this algorithm. There you will understand it very clearly. So simply remember, whatever problem we have in hand, to get the solution for that problem, the steps what we are following, those steps are nothing but our algorithm. Okay, simple example, simple definition. Then it is, yeah, this second definition, it is very important, because it is involving a lot of technical terms into it. It is the simple definition what we have seen, no technical terms, nothing. But when you go for this second definition of the algorithm, here we have a lot of technical terms which we need to analyze. Okay, so if you see the second definition, it is an ordered sequence. The first technical term is ordered sequence. It is an ordered sequence of unambiguous and well defined instructions. So unambiguous and well defined, this is second term, and this is third term. Okay, that performs some task. Yeah, this is also another technical term, performing some task, and halts in finite amount of time, the last technical term. Okay, all these technical terms we will try to understand over here in our next slide. Okay, it is an ordered sequence of, ordered sequence is my first technical term. What exactly mean by ordered sequence? Then unambiguous and well defined. Unambiguous and well defined means what? Okay, that performs some task. Definitely when we are writing the algorithm, it has to perform some task, and it should halt after a finite amount of time. Okay, so all these technical terms we'll see in detail in our next slide. So you just see the last point. Your algorithm is language independent. Your algorithm is language independent. That means we can write the algorithm in any of the language, any of the natural language. No need to depend on any computer programming language or something. No need to follow any syntax of the computer programming language or something over here. So you can write the algorithm in any of the programming, I mean in any of the natural language. Like English I can use to write the algorithm, or like Urdu I can use for writing the algorithm. So the only idea over here, when you are writing the algorithm, it must be understandable by all the people involved in the development process. Hopefully you understood. So the algorithm is language independent. That is, plain instructions in an algorithm can be written in any language to get the expected output. So it is not compulsory that you have to follow a specific programming language or a specific language syntax when you are writing the algorithm. You can write the algorithm in any language, any natural language. Example, you take it as English. Okay, you can write the algorithm in English before it gets processed, or before you write the programs for that one. Hopefully you understood. So now the second point, technical terms that we need to elaborate, that we will do in our next slide. That is, let's examine the four parts of this definition more closely. This definition, in the sense, the second point definition. So first we said ordered sequence. So the first point, our first technical term, we said ordered sequence. Okay, so all the steps, whatever you are writing in the algorithm, they must be numbered because according to the processing of those steps. So suppose if you are processing a particular step first, you number it as step 1. Then you are performing a particular step as the second step, you number it as step 2. Likewise up to step n. Okay, always before starting any step, you have to start the algorithm. Okay, and you have to follow the top to bottom approach, top down approach, because we process all the instructions in the algorithm in top down approach. So the first step in your algorithm will be the start. So we'll write like this, start. Then we write step 1. So whatever job you want to do here, that you write here. Then step 2. In step 2, whatever job you are doing, that you write step 2. Likewise, and so on, we write up to step n, the last step, step n. Okay, then stop. Like this we write the algorithm. So all the steps, they must be numbered, so that you know the order of those steps. So without numbers, you may not know which step has to be performed first, which step has to be performed second, likewise. But when you number them, definitely you will have some idea. Okay, you have some idea how, I mean, in exactly in what sequence, exactly in what order sequence you have to evaluate, or you have to process those steps, you have to execute those steps. Okay, so this is ordered sequence. So in order to get the order, always we need to number the steps. Okay, so then unambiguous and well defined instructions. So whatever steps you are writing inside your algorithm, or whatever instructions you are writing inside your algorithm, each instruction should be clear and understandable without any difficulty. So when you are writing a particular step in the algorithm, it must be clear and it must be simple, it must be without any difficulty of understanding. Even a lame person should understand. I mean, you try to make that statement such a simple way that a lame person should also understand that step. Okay, so that is the meaning of unambiguous, without any ambiguity, without any problem or complexity. Okay, every step must be clear and understandable. Unambiguous means clear and understandable. Okay, so you have to define, every step must be well defined, so that every person will understand that step. Okay, and performs some task means, the third point, performs some task means you should not write any uh, illogical steps into your program or into your algorithm. Write all legitimate, all important, to the point instructions, or to the point statements into your algorithm. You simply don't take any step from outside world, which is not at all get involved into your project development or into your solution development, and put it into your algorithm. So all the steps, whatever you are writing, they must have some proper meaning related to your problem development, solution development. Okay, so every algorithmic instructions or algorithm must perform some defined task. Then only you include such statement or such instruction into your algorithm. If it is not performing any related job to your algorithm, simply don't include that one into your algorithm. Hopefully you understood. And the last point, if you see, halt in finite time. So see, when you are writing an algorithm, when you are writing the steps in your algorithm, you keep on writing like 100, 200, 1000, 2000 steps, but you are not getting the solution to the problem. Is it legitimate? Is it logical? No, it is not at all logical. The algorithm should and must terminate after a finite number of steps. Okay, it should not go keep on defining steps, keep on doing something in the algorithm without getting the proper output. It should not be like that. When you are writing the algorithm, your algorithm must terminate after a finite number of steps, okay, and must give a proper solution. Okay, so the algorithm must halt in finite time. When it will halt in finite time means when you have finite number of steps. If you have infinite number of steps, if you don't know where the algorithm will end, you have started but you don't know where exactly it will end, I mean where exactly it will give the proper output, then writing such algorithms is meaningless. Okay, don't go for such a solution. So the algorithm, when you are writing, it must terminate after a finite amount of time, and it should have some well defined set of instructions. Hopefully you understood. So these are four terms, four technical terms which we had in our second definition of the algorithm, and for which I have given the proper explanation, hopefully. Okay, so the next thing, we have the characteristics of an algorithm. So this particular thing they asked many times. So for 2 marks I will put this question. For 2 marks they asked many different times. Okay, so sometimes they will ask you to write the characteristics of an algorithm, or sometimes they will ask you to write about specifications, properties of an algorithm. So whatever term, whatever technical term they use, the answer is same. When they are asking you to write characteristic, you have to write the same thing. Specifications, you have to write the same thing. And properties, you have to write the same answer for all these things. Okay, so what are the characteristics in the sense? See, not all return instructions, I mean, when you're writing the instructions for solving a problem, not all instructions can be considered as an algorithm. Okay, you're writing some description on a paper, on a white paper, and you're saying this is my algorithm for solving the problem. Can it be standardized? I mean, can it be accepted by all the people? No, it will not. Simply, whenever you are saying an algorithm, it must have these properties, whatever we have listed over here. Like the algorithm must have a proper input, it must have an output, it must have definiteness, finiteness, effectiveness. If your algorithm is having all these properties, if your written description is having all these properties, then only we call it as an algorithm, then only we consider it as an algorithm. Otherwise it will not be considered as an algorithm. That's what I am saying over here. Not all written instructions can be considered as an algorithm. In order to consider the written statements as an algorithm, it must have the following characteristics. So in order to make the description, in order to make the written description as an algorithm, it must have the following properties. So what properties? In the sense, it must have input, it must have output, definiteness, finiteness, and effectiveness. So what is input? An algorithm, it may have 0 or more inputs. It is not compulsory that every algorithm should have inputs. You may have 0 inputs as well for an algorithm. So when we do it practically, you will understand why I am saying 0 inputs, why I am considering 0 inputs. Okay, so an algorithm can have 0 or more inputs, okay, taken from a specified set of objects. So the input, when you are giving to the algorithm, it must be specified. I mean, what sort of inputs it can take, the algorithm can take, it must be defined. When it is having inputs, It doesn't mean that anything you can give as an input to the algorithm. So it must be well-defined input. So it must be a well-defined set of inputs. So when the program is taking input, the program should be aware that what type of input the user can give. Okay, so input should be well-defined, and you can have either 0 or more inputs to the algorithm. Then we have the concept of output. So an algorithm, it must generate it not 0, it must generate either one or more outputs. So when we are talking about outputs, you have to focus on this one. The algorithm must have one or more outputs. So when we said inputs, it is 0 or more, but when we said output, it must be one or more, because if the algorithm is generating 0 outputs, for what purpose you have written the algorithm if it is not generating any output? So in that, it is not at all acceptable. So when you have written some algorithm, it must generate some sort of output. So that because of that reason only we said one or more outputs, so which have a specified relation to the input. So what type of, I mean, whatever output the algorithm is generating, there must be a relation between the given input. So you are giving something as an input and it is giving some different output, some illogical output, it is meaningless, isn't it? Always the output what we are getting, it must be logically related to the input what we have given. So remember this one. Okay, so next thing is definiteness. So already we discussed this definiteness step. So each step must be precisely defined. I told you we cannot put anything as a step in the algorithm. It must be logically related to the given problem. Then only you put that step as an instruction or as a statement into the algorithm. So each step must be precisely defined and each instruction is clear and unambiguous. This also we discussed. There should not be any ambiguity when you are writing these steps, when you are writing the instructions into the algorithm. It must be understandable by all the people getting involved. Okay, so each instruction written in the algorithm, it must be clear and unambiguous. Okay, clear and unambiguous. So that means it should not have any difficulty in understanding. So that is definiteness. Then finiteness, already we discussed it. So the algorithm must always be terminate after a finite number of steps. Okay, finiteness means the algorithm should have countable steps and it should terminate after some finite amount of time. It should not be like in such a way that you have started the processing of an algorithm and it is a never ending process. So if it is like that, nobody will opt such an algorithm, isn't it? Because everybody is very much curious, everybody is very much cautious about the time, and you have started one algorithm today and after a year also the algorithm is not completing, then nobody will show the interest to such algorithm or to such solution. Definitely it has to terminate. I mean, when we have started the processing of an algorithm, we must know after how much time the algorithm will end. The end point we have to know. Then only that sort of algorithm will be opted by many different people. Okay, so finiteness is also an important point, important consideration when we are developing or when we are writing the algorithm. Then the last one, effectiveness, how effective your algorithm is. It should be basic and simple. See, if you are doing some complex calculations into the algorithm, again nobody will show the interest in the development of your algorithm. Don't put such complex statements or such complex calculations into your algorithm. Always make it as simple as it is, as basic as it is. Okay, as much basic, I mean, you can take that algorithm as much basic level as possible. Just do it, just take it, because if you put some complex calculations, some more technical things into the algorithm, then definitely nobody will show the interest in developing your algorithm. Hopefully you understood. So an algorithm must be basic and simple and it has to give the expected solution to the problem in a finite number of steps. Okay, so this is the effectiveness of your algorithm. So if your algorithm is satisfying all these characteristics, if your algorithm is satisfying all these properties, then we call such a thing as an algorithm. Okay, Hopefully you understood. So there are some examples that we need to discuss for these algorithms that we will do in our next class. Okay. So after the discussion of those algorithms, quickly we'll go with pseudocode and flowchart. Okay. Once we complete flowchart, we'll get into the C programming stuff. So over there, very limited points we need to discuss inside the first unit. So from C language, in your first unit, we discuss like identifiers, variables, keywords, and then operators. Only these things we will discuss and will wind up your first unit. Okay, so be ready for the mid exams, and do the preparation at every step. It is not something that tomorrow is the exam and today you have started the preparation. Don't do in that way. Whenever it is possible, as you have um, um, uh, enough time, okay, at this stage, as you have enough time for the preparation, just go with the preparation. And PPS, believe me, it is not a simple subject, it is not an easy subject. Okay, you need to pay some extra effort, especially the IT ECE people. Okay, because in future also you are going to depend on this type of programming logics, this type of programming stuff when you complete your upcoming semester subjects. Okay, thank you very much, students.